All right, good morning, not good morning. I'm tired, but it's not morning, so good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Well, thanks for showing up. I know we haven't given tons of details yet, because that's what this meeting is for, so I appreciate you coming with the air of mystery around all this. Not really meant to be mysterious, just going to give you explanation once. Okay, so the goal behind all of this is a congregational evangelism effort. We don't want this to be just, a couple people. We don't want this to be, just me or just the elders or just you. We want it to be as many of us as possible, making some more overt efforts to get into the community and to spread the gospel, which is something that we need to be doing. That's like part of our mission as a church. Of course, these last few years, there's been a lot of things to interrupt that process of everyone going into their little hidey holes for a little while, and some of our distraction of figuring out building stuff and all of that, which, all that is what it is. We're past those things now, which means we have no excuse. So. Okay, so I'll give you a little overview and then go into some details as we go. Hopefully that is readable. I have this as like 2 to 3 person groups, depending on how many people are interested. Our groups may be a little bit larger than that. There are significantly more of you here today than I expected even, which is awesome. So I'm very happy to see that even. But anyhow, the idea is small groups of people having public Bible studies open to all. We want to use an online platform that is called Meetup. I don't know if you are familiar with that or not. It's something that has been used in the past here a little bit, though we want to try to do this on a larger scale. Meetup is basically, think of a social network, but it's all designed around people getting together for things, for meetups, in groups for whatever. So they have meetups for book clubs and for yoga and for whatever imaginable. It's anything that you want it to be. So we can have public Bible studies advertised on there and get those out in the public, out in the community, and attract people who might be interested to come and do that. Just as a note of interest in this, when I looked on Meetup in our area looking for Bible studies, the only things that I could find were like online studies on Zoom. There's not a lot of this like actual in-person Bible study kind of thing, so we could have a monopoly on that experience for anybody who is looking on Meetup for a Bible study. And then we want to study the book of Mark as we do so in all of these little classes, little studies happening. We want to use the book of Mark, and I will explain why momentarily. Okay, when, where, and why. So when, we deliberately want this to be a lot of different times and days. So whatever time it is that you are available is a great time because it is a time that somebody else is not available. And so it doesn't really matter if you work days or work nights or have a weird schedule or whatever the case may be, but you know what's the truth about that? The people we are trying to reach have all those schedules too. So not everybody is available on the exact same day and the exact same time. So we're looking for any day of the week, any time of day. If you are available on a Thursday evening or you want to do a Monday morning 6 a.m. coffee shop Bible study, like have fun. I probably won't be at your 6 a.m. one, but you're welcome to do that because there are people out there who enjoy that and who have that schedule. And so if you didn't laugh when I said that and you thought that sounded really good, then great. Like, you should be the one to do that. That is awesome. Weekends, weekdays, doesn't matter. Whatever time that you can commit to regularly. Because the idea is whatever group you are in, that you're going to continue to go to this study and keep going each time that you have it. So got to be something you can commit to regularly. I know things will come up. We'll have some ways to deal with that. Scott. Yes. Yes. So each of these studies, you can kind of pick your frequency on it. You don't have to do it every week. That does come around really fast. So every week is fine if you want to. Every other week is fine. If the only way we can get you to do it is once a month, then once a month is fine too. But we want to have something regularly out there is the idea. And to have some level of predictability to it. That if somebody in the community is looking for something, that they will see kind of a pattern. If I can be here on Thursday nights and know that I'm going there. Is my mic still working? Maybe? Okay, you guys can hear me. That's all that matters. Greg? Yeah. Yes, definitely. If you are available only on an intermittent basis, then trying to be in a group that for reasons we'll talk about momentarily, we always want at least 2 people there. So if the group is that small, you really need to be able to commit. But past that, if you are only available intermittently, then join in when you can for it, or be kind of a floating person able to go around and help. We'll have some things to help coordinate that as we go. Okay, so that's the win. You can think of times that are going to be good for you, and we'll match you up with people who also like those times. Where? Mostly anywhere you like, but with a couple considerations. Okay? So first off, not here for a specific reason. Okay? We have things that we do here. We have strategies we can use to try to advertise our worship services, our classes here, and there will be some people who are willing to come to that. But we also need to be, like Paul, going out into the public places to reach the people who might not walk through the doors of a church building, or who might have weird hang-ups about hearing Church of Christ, or whatever the case may be. It doesn't really matter. We're trying to accomplish something a little bit different here. So we want to find a place that is not this building, and we're also deliberately going to be advertising these just as like Santee Bible Study or East County Bible Study, things like that. Not to hide who we are. Please don't lie to people. That would be a very bad thing to do. Don't lie to people. Don't be like needlessly secretive. But there's a purpose of building a relationship first, and then you can, say more of where you're from and invite them to come here if that makes sense. But yeah, if you're asked, just go ahead and tell them. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And he actually would get a canopy that will park, and that anyone who has questions or going to have prayer, maybe off the Bible study, one-on-one, maybe even on the phone or something like that. I mean, so now, but the thing is that he doesn't do that at Balboa Park because of the parking is atrocious.
Yeah.
So what he does now is he does a booth at a
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. That is a neat idea. And we can explore a lot of different ways that we can do this. Mostly like the kinds of places that I want you to think about going to is, going to a coffee shop, to Panera Bread, to a park maybe, if you can make that work. There's pros and cons to different places like that. Outdoors you got to deal with weather. Indoors, there's often, a business that you're patronizing at the same time, right? So you got some considerations there. but somewhere out in public. The other thing that we want to avoid right at first is please don't use your home right at first. We want to kind of screen people a little bit and get to know people in a way before we invite them into our homes, just for safety's sake, and acknowledging the fact that sometimes strange people are attracted to this sort of thing, and strange is fine, I suppose, but more like ill is the problem here, of mentally ill or somebody looking to create some problems. So we really highly recommend and would ask you to start in a public place. If you get some interest from some people and you've met them a few times and you can tell that they're sincere and that you've kind of got a reasonable relationship building with them, and you want to have some of the studies at your home, that's perfectly fine. But the way we advertise it on Meetup, we can have them call and not just have your address posted. Yeah.
I'm familiar with Meetup. I actually joined a couple of Meetup groups.
Okay. Yeah.
And what I found was that many people will sign up or potentially sign up. It's rarely, if ever, so.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying we shouldn't be discouraged by people not showing up.
Yeah.
Because that's real common there. You know what I mean?
Yes. I have a few things I want to say about kind of the way we should frame this in our minds, and maybe some expectations for sure, because that is a real factor here. Aaron?
We already have a group created.
Yes. We have a group created. No events are filled on it yet. At the moment it's called East County Bible Study. That name can be changed. So, okay.
And also, if it's announced where you're gonna be at a certain day or whatever, they ask if you will be attending or something like that, just to get some kind of a commitment. But, to a different place.
Yeah.
From there.
Yeah, you can move around, however you like. We can make all that work. There's going to be a little trial and error involved in this process. The important thing is we want to get something going. We can adapt as needed, but start doing something and then fix whatever's not working. So why are we doing it this way in particular? Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
I just wanted to ask if you guys have considered in that same vein of security of pairing people up to this. I mean, that's one way that I'm sure, they're going to be kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also, the other advantage of that, if it's handled right, the person doesn't feel ganged up on, but there's also like a diversified assistance that when one dropping on one issue, you might be able to help with the other, the other individuals. So I would at least encourage the thought process.
Yes, that is something that we would like for these all to be, for you to not go by yourself to any of them. The reason why we want this to be small group studies. I've got a couple other things I want to talk about as to why we want it to be small group like this, 2 or 3, or if it needs to be a little bigger, that's fine. But if it's only going to be one person there and we cannot find anyone else to go, you really should just cancel it because we want to be safe, we want to be effective as well. And there's a few things. Let me get through a little bit of what I want to say about this. And I think some of your questions are going to be answered, but I'm going to have opportunity for you to ask questions as well. Okay, so we're doing it this way to accomplish something different, right? Smaller, more personal studies. The kinds of Bible classes that we have here are good for a purpose, and we get the kind of collective benefit of everyone studying together. But it can also be really intimidating to someone if they don't like that format or they're afraid to ask their questions. I mean, how many of you are sometimes afraid or nervous to speak up in class, and these people here, right? Imagine being the visitor and not feeling like you can ask your question, or it not being as focused on the things that you need to hear. So this isn't replacing anything that we do here. It's an addition for sure. It's more accessible. It's more casual to people. It lets us spread out and hit more times and places than we can do here in our assemblies. Okay, so the study in particular, we would like for each group to start out studying the book of Mark for a few reasons. You can take it chapter by chapter. Mark is really good because it is all about the distinctive nature of Jesus. That Jesus is not just a man, he is not just a wise teacher, he is not just a particularly moral example. The book of Mark can be divided in half, and the first half is making that point that everywhere that Jesus goes and everything that he does, people realize there's something about this man. There's something about Jesus that is just different. And they come to a lot of different conclusions as to what they think that difference is. You've got the Pharisees saying that he's working by the power of demons. You've got some thinking that he's, a miracle worker who's there to feed them and there to kind of put on a show for them. And you have some who start coming to the realization that he has divine power, divine essence, that he is actually the Son of God himself. And so then in the second half of the book, the second 8 chapters, it's all the implications of that. Since Jesus is the Son of God, what is your life to be, and how are you supposed to live? What are you supposed to do in the kingdom? Peggy.
Well, I have a question. I mean, you're giving a study up here. What are your intentions, or how is your intentions to get the people then to do the study with you? Because that's the basic thing first, is you have to bring people in
Yeah.
before you study with them.
Right.
And I have found that it's more successful on an individual basis in their home or in your home.
Yeah.
When you make these acquaintances, but first of all, you have to make the acquaintance.
Yeah. So there's certainly opportunity for us to do what hopefully we have all been doing for a long time, of the acquaintances that you make. You start building relationships with people, and you strike up that conversation and say, hey, would you like to study the Bible with me? Or would you like to come to church with me sometime? Anything like that. We're working to accomplish something a little bit different here, in that we're playing a little bit of a numbers game. We're advertising these studies, and Meetup will have it framed for us where if you come to this event, it is for the purpose of studying the Bible. And no, we don't know each other yet, but the idea is we get to know each other, we start studying together, and there's opportunity for that to work out. We're going to give it a shot and see how successful it is. But this is a lot like what Paul did, going out into the marketplace and trying to strike up these conversations. There's a lot of different avenues we can use for evangelism. The evangelism that happens here in our worship when we have visitors, the evangelism that we do individually, and then these other types of strategies of doing small classes and such. Okay? So I'm not wanting to tell you that this should replace anything that you are doing, or this is the only way that we are allowed to evangelize going forward. We are trying to put more opportunities for more people and to have some structure for people who would like to volunteer and to be a part of something who might not know how to get started otherwise. Greg.
I was just going to say, besides this, actually, I don't know, you may already be doing this, but I think one of the most important things we should do is let people know that we're here. And they've got publications and advertising everywhere for everything. And it doesn't hurt to let people know by having like a little ad with maybe a scripture or something on it that would just let people know that we're here.
Yeah.
And that what we're about.
Yes, so we have other things that we're discussing right now about like advertising the church here. The sign has already been helpful. I don't know if some of y'all met the visitors we had this morning. We had some visitors here who had been to Awaken Church before when it was here, and they kind of wandered in, realized it was a different church now, and they stayed throughout the service. And there's opportunity there for those kinds of things. And we have heard several visitors already in the short time we've been here, several visitors say, I had no idea that y'all were here. They probably didn't say y'all because it's California, but I didn't know that you were here because, we were kind of tucked away before. We are more visible here. So we're working on the advertising of the church here and of trying to attract people to our assemblies. But this is a different effort to go alongside that. So let's not get too worried about all of the other things that go along with this. You are still welcome to talk to friends and family, to talk to acquaintances that you have. We're still going to work on attracting people to our assemblies here. This is an additional tool that we want to get Bible studies out in the community with people who might be interested in doing that on some Thursday night. Mona?
Before I came to the Church of Christ, I had a friend, or I have a friend actually. She's evangelical Baptist or whatever. But the first Bible study that I went to with them, I just want to let you know how.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get to. I'm trying to lay foundation. The first thing they wanted me to study with them was Revelation. I'm going, oh my goodness. I don't want to know about Revelation. I don't want to know about Paul doing ministry work, and where he went and whatever. I want to know about Christ. I want to know about Jesus. I want to know what I need to do to get there, to get to heaven.
Yep.
So I just wanted to, put my
Yeah.
there's going to be a lot of people that are on different levels of, I'm brought up Catholic, so I do have a background of Jesus.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that some people are on different levels of what they want to learn from the Bible, what they want to take from it, especially when you want to bring them into the Bible. You don't want to bore them with, like history.
Yeah.
You want to get to the spiritual and begin biblical, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I was.
That's the reason why we've chosen Mark to be the first thing that we do, because Mark is, as one of the Gospels, is the story of Jesus. It's getting to know who Jesus is. And you're right that people have a lot of different backgrounds. Some people have never actually read through the Gospels before and have a lot of ideas about what they think Jesus said and did, but don't really know. I can't begin to tell you the number of people that I have heard say that Jesus was like a radical socialist revolutionary, and that's just weird because in no way was Jesus advancing a political agenda of any kind. That was not the point of his ministry. And his disciples, of course, thought he was, at first not with a socialist one, but with a liberation faction of trying to get away from Rome. And that's still not what Jesus was doing. And so actually seeing the things he said and did, the easy things and the hard things, the awe-inspiring things, will be very useful in helping people to see who Jesus really is. So I've got that. Okay, I have binders that I've been working on making up, and I was going to bring some, though there was never a chance I was going to have enough for as many people as are here right away, but my printer went on the fritz. So at the moment I have 0 binders to give you, but I'm going to take a list at the end of this of anyone who wants a binder, and we will get one made up for you. Aaron? I can email a digital copy. That's the next thing I wanted to say. If you prefer it digitally, I love that idea because that works great. So, yeah. But I will also happily make one for you on paper as well. No problem. Yeah, Scott?
I don't, if you said this, I was distracted. One thing that I really like what you said is, the idea is, this is I don't know what you call it, web-based invite,
Yeah.
that meetup thing. And people might come, and Greg makes the point that they might not show up. I think that's likely.
Yeah.
But this group of 2 or 3 to go and be there at that time? Did you see that?
No, I'm going to get there right here in just a sec. Yes, yes.
You want to finish it then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure, I can do that. Yeah, so we got lots of good reasons to want to do that, but just very quickly here, let me finish this thought that Mark is good because it will help people to get to know Jesus, and it will help us avoid caricatures of religion or focusing too much on obscure spin-off questions that aren't very productive. And it very conveniently ends with a discussion of faith and baptism, so there's opportunities there. Okay. A few of you have mentioned this, maybe some hesitation, maybe some thoughts of, will people come? Will as many people as we like come? Is this going to be effective at all? What if nobody shows up to your study for a little while? I don't know how many people are going to show up. I don't know how effective Meetup in particular will be in advertising these. And I'll just make clear here now that if Meetup, the service, doesn't work that well for us, we'll use something else. Like we're not tied to that. The goal is try something, have something that we think can be effective in inviting people, and if that doesn't work, we'll supplement something to it or change entirely. That's fine. But what if nobody shows up to the study that you've got? You're there on Thursday night, and it's you and your 2 or 3 or 4 people who are there to study. That is okay. It is okay for a few reasons. And I think maybe we should even expect that this will happen, at least at first, that we're not always going to have others who are there with us. So one of the reasons why we want to do this in small groups, aside from the safety reason, is we stand to benefit from this as well. That we have opportunity to study together. Of course, Bible study is something that we do in our corporate worship. We do it in our families. We do it by ourselves. This doesn't replace any of that. It's not better or worse than any of that. It's another opportunity. And how many of us could use another opportunity sometime in our week to be studying the Bible with our brethren? So, quite frankly, even if nobody comes to that study, it's not a waste. It's not a failure. It's a different kind of success because the 3 or 4 of us who are there, however many it is, got to sit down for an hour and study from the book of Mark or talk about whatever Bible questions we want to talk about. And we got something from that. God is glorified when we do that. We grow as we do that. And there's all sorts of opportunities for you to do things like, okay, well, it's just us this time. Maybe I'm normally a little bit too shy to actually lead the class, but since it's just us this time, I'm going to practice doing it. We don't have any guests this time. It's just the people I know. So I'm going to try to lead class, and if I get stuck, then the other people who are there can help me. And I didn't embarrass myself too bad because it's just my brethren who are here, and that's a really beneficial thing to be able to do. So we'll have opportunity, even if it's going slowly, to study with each other. If we need to advertise differently, we'll advertise differently. But I want you to have these 2 goals in your minds, that this is partly an evangelistic effort and partly an effort for us to spend more time together studying God's Word, which is worth it all by itself. Okay? Okay, so the way that these studies are set up, it is likely to be kind of slow progress at first. You can see on Meetup how many people are joining different events. And on the Bible studies that are there, that are over Zoom and online and things like that, they don't have huge numbers of people that are going. My hope is, because there's not an in-person one, that we could attract some attention and we could get some neat studies going. But even once we have people who are there, you're not likely to convert anyone in an hour. It's possible. I mean, the Philippian jailer was converted very quickly. He came to know what he needed to do, and he was baptized that very same night. So, I mean, be ready for that, but also be ready for the fact that it could be a slow process. We're working to build relationships, to foster a hunger for Scripture, to build up step by step to these realizations of who Jesus is. So there will be opportunities as you go to invite them to worship, to invite them to meet others in the church, to invite them into your home, all sorts of things like that. It's unlikely to all happen in a rush, all in the first week or two. You know, take it piece by piece as it comes. Mona?
Are we gonna offer Bibles to everyone? Because they should leave if they're
Yeah, I think it could be very good to try to bring, we need to coordinate how that's going to happen, maybe bring a Bible or two with you. At the very least, a simple way to do that is bring a physical Bible with you to study out of, and if somebody at the study needs one, you could hand them that one, and you switch to using your phone or tablet or whatever that probably has a Bible on it or can. Or I'm sure we have Bibles around here that we can get, or we can figure out ways to do that. Alan?
I'm happy to provide that. World Bible School has a nice leather-bound edition for $6 a piece, and I buy them by the case.
Awesome. Yeah.
Really neat to the Bible.
Those are great tools we can use if. Cool. Okay. That's what I've got this binder based off of. I didn't talk about the binder that much before. What the binder is on one side you've got the text in the ESV. If you don't want to use that, you can use your own Bible. That's fine. On one side you got the text in the ESV, and on the other side you have some observations and some questions from the text. It's not designed to be everything that you need in order to teach the class. Like, you're going to need to do some work ahead of time to read it and study it and be prepared. But it gives you something to start off of, and maybe some trends that are going to be picked up later in the book of Mark that are worth noting as you go. Okay. I think what's so important in this is for us to do it consistently, to be out there, even if we're not getting people or very many people right at first. Having the consistent habit is going to give opportunity and is going to have us in position for the people who are seeking. And I refuse to believe that there is no one in our community who is seeking. That just is impossible for me to even imagine that nobody, literally no one, out of the hundreds of thousands of people in a pretty small radius around here is seeking God. Okay? Yeah. Steve Gagel.
I guess I had a different thought of this morning. I guess I could be, maybe because I live somewhere else, I'm not sure we all know each other. I mean, let's start over. The elevators up in the Edison, we have like, in a large city, we have like 3 pages of Church of Christ. And we moved here and we went to 6 or 7 Church of Christ. It's not buildings that have Church of Christ in front of it. There was Division Street, there was 61st, and that's, so I had a 15-mile radius.
Yeah.
I think there's something lost in our credibility when there's division, to some extent.
Well, yeah, I mean, those are issues that go beyond what we want to talk about today. But our goal is to get out there and to have something in the public for people to be a part of, to see, to learn and to grow. Lisa. Yeah. Right. No. Yeah.
We're looking for company.
Right, yes, that's, there's a lot of, I mean, you're going to have some people who think of it like a book club, maybe, at first, of just, hey, let's read through Mark. I've never actually read through it before. Might have some other religiously minded people who are interested in talking to other religiously minded people, and that's their goal. You might have some who are, very openly have questions and are looking for something and say they are looking for something. And you might have some who are even a little more combative than that. There's a lot of different possibilities here that we need to be ready for. Okay, let me get through a few things here, and I'll give you guys opportunity for questions momentarily. We're getting a little sidetracked.
There's somebody back there that's been raising his hand.
And you weren't in here, Peggy, and yes, he was. Yeah, we're getting a little sidetracked, and I want us to be able to talk about what this is here. So, okay. So tips for this going well: study and be well prepared. Okay, like I said, the binders should be helpful, but to have some credibility and to have a productive study, you do need to kind of know what you're talking about, which means you need to have read it beforehand. I would recommend reading through the whole book of Mark to get a feel for what it is. Get ready in advance, in enough time that there's time, if you've got questions, to research it some more, to ask for help. You would like to not go into one of these studies with some gigantic question about the text that I have no idea what's happening here, and then proceed to try to teach everybody what's happening there. So questions can be answered. I'm happy to answer questions. You can talk to any of the elders, talk to other people in the congregation. It just helps if it's not, half an hour before you're supposed to be studying, right? So get ready in advance. Be ready to talk about this. Think about potential questions that a guest might ask. Misconceptions about the text. If there's some hard sayings in there, they might not know what it means, or they might think it's something different than what it really is. Write down some observations and some questions that you want to bring up in the study to try to spur on some conversation. We talked about not going alone. We want to make sure there's at least 2 people at each of these studies for 2 reasons: of safety, and also so that you are able to have a study even if it's just you 2. So if there's not going to be 2 of you, go ahead and cancel it and show it canceled on Meetup as well. Try again another week. But otherwise, let's make it 2 or more. Remember that even Jesus sent his disciples out 2 by 2. So we got some precedent for that. And it should help you feel a little bit more confident too, right? Okay. Be ready for an impromptu guest. Sometimes when you have Bible studies in public places, people wander up and want to know what's going on and might just join there. So you may not be expecting anyone to come, and you might have somebody who suddenly is there. That's cool. Roll with it. You have opportunity to study right then and there. They might not know exactly what it was you were going to study. Just get what you can from that and start building that relationship that way. Once someone joins, if you were going through Mark, I'd recommend kind of resetting and going back to chapter 1. If it takes 3 or 4 weeks to get a guest and you're in Mark 3, now that you've got new people there, maybe just go ahead and reset. I'll leave it up to you to do it how you want to do it, but you want to be able to talk about the flow of the book with people. Okay.
It's entirely possible that people, will plan on going,
Yeah.
and it takes a long time, and they may go, but it may only be a one-off.
Yeah.
So you may not have steady people
Yeah.
coming every week.
There's a lot we can't control about this. You get people who are one time, people who say they come but don't actually come. All we can do is be there. All we can do is try, and it is a bit of a numbers game. Yeah.
So, let's say you go, you've gone 3 or 4 times during Mark chapter 5.
Yeah.
Whatever. You've had 3 or 4 people who's come for all, if not all, the things. You got somebody coming up, just joining the group impromptu,
Yeah.
coming in. You don't start back.
No. I mean, you use some sense in this. My point is don't be afraid to reset down there. Like if it's just been, like 3 of us here that have been going through, and now we have somebody from the community, we might want to start over for their benefit, and not even say it. Don't make a big deal about it. Just start over and do it. But no, I mean, you do what's sensible and do what makes sense. Like you don't have to be railroaded here. Yeah.
You advertise where you're gonna be in the books, or they just discussing?
Just saying that you can advertise it however you want, but what I was envisioning for this is just saying that we're studying from the book of Mark. When you give us a call to get where we're going to be, we can tell you where we are in the book, what you can be ready for, stuff like that. If you want to do it differently, that's fine. Kathy?
One important thing that I need to understand, if you want to save a lot of time and headache for yourself, have everybody have the same version of the Bible. Because you can spend the whole class on a few words that are different.
Yeah, that is its own challenge.
So just bring more Bibles and make sure they're all the same version.
Yeah, that's one advantage to having some digital Bibles on your phone or whatever. You can switch versions. I do try to match the version with somebody if I can, because that can make things easier. Use your sense in this to try to have the most productive class possible. You're going to have little hiccups that come up, but there'll be things that you can do to help make it work better. Okay, so be prepared to talk, have some things to say, have some questions to ask, but don't dominate the discussion. Don't drown out everyone else. It is meant to be a discussion. So you can do things like read a section at a time and then discuss. Ask the class, what do you think is happening here? And the answer they give may be spot on, it may be fairly obvious, or they could be wildly off base, and you got to be prepared to handle it either way, right? To say, well, what's actually happening here, or consider this, and start steering the discussion toward the events that are going on in this chapter. Have some questions ready. Like I said, the binder's got some questions in there that you can ask the class. You can certainly come up with your own as well. Lead the discussion towards certain observations, trying to mine the chapter for good observations, for things to learn. Yeah, Greg?
I don't mean to dominate the discussion, but addressing Kathy's comment is maybe one way to pair people up is by what versions they use, so that way it's not cheating.
Yeah, that's if you feel pretty strongly that you want to use a particular version, then find somebody who wants to do that. That's fine. Mona?
I find it helpful not to get stuck on one verse, that if you read above it and below it, everything will actually become understandable, regardless of what, if you're King James or NIV,
Yeah.
It-
Well, that's what I was saying, like taking it section by section, right, rather than verse by
just
verse,
stuck on a verse.
is helpful. Yes,
That-
because
that has one word discrepancy. Just
Yeah.
look above it, look below it, and find out what Jesus is trying to say.
even aside from the translation differences, a lot of the questions people have about the Bible, and they say, I don't know what this verse means.
Yeah.
Those questions are answered when you look above or below or both, and almost always that will answer the question for you. So take it section by section, have a good understanding of what's going on. Mona?
Are you open to handouts? This is from Lakeside Church of Christ. Do you guys
Yeah.
have these two?
I can't remember if we have those in particular. I've used those before. We
Can I
just
get
put some things up on there. Yeah.
I also have other handouts, and I did my Bible study with
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
with the preacher on the phone.
Yeah.
From the Church of Christ. So I have other handouts that I may like to offer up.
Yeah.
That's-
Okay, so addressing questions. You could get a few different kinds of questions. Okay, side questions, like all the questions you've been asking tonight. Side questions where it's maybe a side issue or a little tangent. Give a good faith answer if you can, if you're prepared to, if you've got some knowledge of how to answer that question. You can always suggest a more detailed discussion next time. I always tell people, do not be afraid to say, I'd like to look into that some more. Can we talk about this next time? Anyone who is reasonable, anyone who is actually interested in coming to a better understanding of the Bible will understand that that is a respectful answer. That you are doing your due diligence and that you are not just blowing off their question. If they're trying to start a fight, well, that's another thing entirely. Assess how useful the question is. Don't get too off track for no reason. Remember what you are trying to get through in the class and be prepared to pull it back and say, we can talk more about this in the future. Right now I want to keep going in Mark chapter 1 and move on to the next thing. But yeah, you don't want to ignore people's questions or make them feel like that they're not being heard. You're not just lecturing at them. Okay, so hostile questions. That is a possibility here, where somebody is, very worked up over some misunderstanding or some very strongly held belief. You've said something that offends them, or the scripture says something that offends them, and now they're very angry about it.
Revelation.
Yeah. So cheerfully defuse the situation the best you can. We're trying to get away from emotional tirades and toward substantive questions. Redirect to the planned study as much as you can. Let them know, hey, I'm not interested in a heated argument. You're welcome to ask questions, but I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to shout at you, and I don't want to be shouted at. Or whatever the situation is. Ask them to quiet down, ask them to leave if you have to, and if they're really that disruptive and won't leave, just leave and be done with it. That's all you have to do. We don't need to have a huge blow up that's not going to benefit anyone. At that point, nothing good is going to be accomplished, so try to not let it get out of hand. Steve?
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, what about crazy? Yeah, go ahead, Peggy.
Well, in about 50 years of studying with people, I have not had the problem of having to ask someone to leave. Now, Walter and I had one study when he was preaching in Oxnard. We were at the door, and I just knocked on the door, and it's open, and we've been studying with this couple for several weeks,
Yeah.
and they're arguing. They're
Yeah.
arguing about us, whether we ought to come or not.
Yeah.
And that's the only time, and all I said is, Carol, we don't have to be here if you don't want us to be here.
Yeah.
And she says to me, oh no, it's not that, I like you, Peggy. And so I ended up in the kitchen with her, and Walter was in the front room with him. But the basic problem there were personalities.
Yeah.
And when you handle it gently, you don't attack these people.
Right.
In fact, Carol, of course, I've had a lot of practice with people.
Yeah.
But, it worked out where we stayed. In fact, she was baptized finally.
Good.
But it's knowing how not to be abrasive to the person you're trying to help.
Yes, absolutely. That most things can be diffused. Most things aren't going to be a problem to begin with. Most people do try to be reasonable. And if they're kind of getting out of hand, if you refuse to engage in a fight, it's almost always going to die down pretty quickly. But on the off chance that it doesn't, if something really is bubbling up, just realize that even Jesus didn't answer every question, walked away from some situations. It's not always about the teacher. It can be about the person not being willing to hear or not to have an honest discussion. And if it gets to that point, it gets to that point. We don't have to rush to that judgment, but it can be. Barry?
Now, you have to remember that you're a guest in this restaurant.
Yes, that's the other consideration here.
You have to act accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're in Starbucks or Panera or whatever, you can't be making a big scene. That's not going to do any good. You're not going to be able to go back there and do this again. And so if it's getting out of hand in the group that you're kind of responsible for, you got to shut that down for that reason even. Okay, Jeff and then Mona.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, you cross-reference things, if it's kind of confusing on this, go to another scripture and go, explain it.
Yeah.
You know, but it's not, well, this is what I think it means. No, what does the Bible say it means?
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Mona?
I was just gonna say, like in the corporate world, when you used to like train people, I used to train people, and we would have a parking lot. We called it the parking lot, and we put whatever came up that was not a part of what we were actually studying or trying to figure out. We put it on the parking lot, and then we get to it later, basically, and maybe call them up or
Yeah.
so forth like that.
Yeah, particularly if you've got a.
But also, I just want to say one more thing.
Mhm.
We should not, basically, when you actually reach something that you're not able to answer, you got to humble yourself.
Yeah.
Because no one is going to know everything, you just have
That's right.
to humble yourself like Jesus would.
Any reasonable person will be okay with the answer of, well, I'm not sure offhand. Let me look more into that. Let's talk about it next week. That's something I had to learn and get over and starting to teach Bible classes even here. Sometimes you guys throw questions at me. My first couple of years of being a preacher, that was a hard thing for me to say. I wanted to be the fount of wisdom that knew all the answers. And sometimes you guys have questions that I don't know the answers to right away. That's fine. Like we understand that, and that's everyone's in that boat, right? So okay. So if you get to just crazy, not hostile, but literally just crazy, like mentally ill, you nicely and firmly redirect however much you can, but just to be firm, to not let them take over. Say, we're not interested in talking about why Revelation is about aliens coming and taking over the earth or whatever. You think I'm joking. There's weird stuff out there, right? We're not interested in talking about that, but it's not a profitable discussion. We're not doing that. If you do not engage with that, and that's all that they're there for, they will leave. Or you will do something else without them, right? And again, you just manage the situation however you need to. And to Barry's point that he mentioned before, we want to give no opportunity for anyone to speak poorly of you. At all times, you will be polite and cheerful and kind. You will not disrupt anyone's day nearby, especially out in public places like this. If you are having a study in Starbucks, there are other things going on in Starbucks. You do not rule that place, and it is not just there for your study and for what you have going on. So, at Starbucks, buy a drink or something, be polite. If you're asked to leave for any reason, just leave. Please don't argue with anybody. It's unnecessary. Try not to do things that would get you asked to leave, right? We want to be a good testimony of Christ and understand that you are representing the cause of Jesus and the cause of this church here. And if you make a poor showing of that, it has a lot of negative implications. So don't get involved in any shouting match. Don't allow it to happen in the group. Just be reasonable, and it will be good. Pray about this effort often. You can pray in these studies. We can pray about it outside of them. I hope that we will start praying about them even in our public prayers here. And when you are at home, keep praying for open doors, for wisdom in how we're handling these things. And please share your progress and your struggles with others who are in the church. I know the elders want to hear about how it's going with you, and I hope they'll check up on you. But talk about what's happening. Talk about if you're getting people, how many you're getting, how those studies are going. Try to get names and numbers of these people for your own use in following up with them later. But also you might have opportunity to kind of hand them off in some ways if they need some more one-on-one time in another setting, right? There are others who can help to study. So any problems that you have with it, reasons why you think it's not working very well, talk about it. Maybe there are things we can work on. Maybe we need to pivot and change a little bit of how we're doing this. We'll figure it out. But you're not going through it alone because you've got your small group with you there, and we're all doing this together as a church. Okay, great.
Who talks to the place
You don't necessarily need to do that. Most of these kinds of places are, know as part of the business model that they get used for kind of shortish meetings like that. If you are growing pretty large, you might need to think about how we're handling this. And if you encounter any friction with the business owner or the employees there for whatever reason, certainly you can talk to them and kind of say, hey, we're just kind of coming here once a week doing this. Is this causing a problem? Like I said, be cheerful and be helpful. You don't need to arrange it with them ahead of time necessarily. Yeah. Find a place where you can reasonably do that. People go to Starbucks for business lunches and small meetups and things like that, or places like that, right? Betty, and then Diane.
But you do need to purchase something.
I think that would be polite.
Just a cup of coffee, but they have to clean up that table when you leave,
Yep.
no matter what.
Yeah.
You're being a good Christian if you're in there helping them. So, buy something. If you
Yeah.
need some money to buy a cup of coffee, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, if that's really an obstacle for you, then talk about it. We'll maybe try to see if a couple of us can pool something together to help with some things like that here and there. But yes, it would be good manners to at least buy a drink or something and realize that you are there at somebody's business, and it's not a good idea to take a table from them that isn't, they're not getting anything out of, or to be there all day. You need to, you're going to have an hour study or whatever, right? And then you're going to be done, especially if it's busy. Diane?
Now, I understand that we're going to come here to talk about how to basically evangelize and
Mhm.
community and more involved, but I thought we were going to, as a church, come here and discuss how to study like one-on-one with each other, do group study like that, or even if we are going to study that Mark, give us either the Catholic class, where it's either a church or a people homes where we study on Mars.
Yeah.
And give us material on that. I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm excited about it, and I will do it, I can do it on my own.
No.
But I would personally have to listen to something
Yeah.
to kind of give me ideas, thoughts, and commentaries and stuff, I don't know.
Yeah. So there's two ways that we can address this. One way to address it is in each of these groups, we would like for one person to kind of head up that group and to be generally responsible for doing the teaching in it, right? To be ready each week to be able to lead the class. If there are others who want to kind of practice doing that, then that's fine. Or if you want to trade off, however you want to handle it. But somebody who is not intimidated by this process, that is more mature, that has done these sort of studies before or studied with people before, and then we can pair you up with others who maybe haven't done this before or are a little bit more nervous about it, and you can pair up that way. If you are like really, really nervous about this and would like more guided help than that, then I would be willing to, have a group meet here periodically, and we can have a little workshop thing where we go through a study like this and do it, or just come join my group sometime and we'll do it. But even if we do one that's just a dry run here, where we're not going to be inviting anyone else, so that you have opportunity to ask some questions about how this process works, that's fine too. Dan?
So you might have discussed this, but are you gonna, you said you already have something. Yeah, right, a meetup, you already have.
Yes.
Now, when we get our groups together, if someone says, I'd like to study, do you just find out, do you ask us?
Okay, so what-
Advertise separate groups?
Yeah, the way it's going to be is whatever group you are in, you are committing to a time slot. And so on Meetup, we will have a recurring event for your time slot. It will be, if you are saying Thursday at 7 and you want it every other week, then every other Thursday at 7, there's going to be an event on that Meetup page for a Bible study. And you are always going to that one. And so when somebody signs up to attend the Thursday one, you know they're coming to yours because that's your slot. You can see all the events of separate like invite lists showing somebody saying, I'm coming to this event at this time. So if I'm doing, a lunchtime one, a Tuesday, noon or whatever, and somebody signs up for the Tuesday noon one, then, I'll see that they're coming to mine. So you're going to that regardless, whether you have people coming or not, because you're going to continue to have your studies there with each other and to be there for anyone who might just walk up and want to do it, or for people who see it next week and want to come. Derek?
I had a question for restarting all the way back to, for new people that join us later.
Yeah.
Let's say we're like 5 chapters in Mark, and then we get maybe 1 or 2 new people that come in, we have to start over. Depending on how many, of our congregation are a part of the pair, whether it's 2, 3, or 4, maybe we could like split into that group a little bit to maybe get those new people caught up.
Yeah, we can do, and I mean, you can manage it however you want in your own group, whether you're restarting to Mark 1 with them or whether you just keep on going. I'll let you manage your own group that way. We don't have to overcomplicate it. Just the idea is let's get something started and then we can get your feedback on how it's going and whether this method of advertising is working or not, or whether we need to try something a little different. But the goal is, to have us in small groups like that. Barry?
Well, if you have an outsider that you've been studying with for 4 or 5, say, or 3 times,
Mhm.
and you move through 4 chapters, and someone new joins your group, well, you don't want to put that first guy back through all
Nope,
those
you just keep on
chapters
going.
over again.
Yeah.
The new guy's just going to have to jump in
Yeah.
wherever you are.
Right, definitely.
And,
Yeah.
and you just have to do it that way, because otherwise you could be, with the possibility of people drifting in and out
Yeah.
of these things, you could be starting over,
No,
6 or
yeah.
7 times, and then you're gonna lose your guys
Right.
who have been with you.
No, you
But
certainly
for
don't want to
the
do that.
possibility of a new person.
Yeah, really more what I meant by that idea of starting over is if it takes a few weeks for you and your group to get any visitor to come at all, then maybe start over then, if you want to. Do whatever you want at this point, it's fine. Okay, Mona?
I was wondering if we can have like a syllabus of like, we could kind of like figure out where they are with their faith, if they have faith or whatever, you know what I mean? If they're new, if they're novices, or if they're kind of like, intermediate or whatever. Is there any other than Mark, okay, which is
Yeah.
basically fundamental, right? It would be for people who don't know anything, really.
Yeah.
Could you actually give us more than Mark for others that are more advanced?
Yeah, so the thing is you are able to tune the depth that you're going to in the class for where people are in this. Like if they literally don't know who Jesus is, or they've never heard that Jesus had apostles, like you're going to be on a relatively shallow end of what you're talking about with them, because you're going to be hitting the basics for sure. But it will become apparent fairly quickly based off the kind of questions they ask and the observations that they're making. You'll be able to tell if they've got much familiarity with it at all. Greg?
And, unless this is a planned temporary kind of thing, 16 weeks is the end of March. So
Right.
do you just go right into Acts, or is that the plan, or?
So that's an idea there to do Acts. That's something we're thinking about. Figure we'll start up in Mark, see how that's going. We can decide what happens next, and you might hit that at different points too. So we'll work on figuring that out as we go. But no, we want to keep it going as long as it's working. Steve.
I think there'll be a lot of rational conversations about scripture and stuff in general, but I think the idea is that we always have scripture to go back to
Yes.
when it gets quiet. You can go, okay, let's go back to what we were
Yeah. Next section, right? Next observation from this section that, yeah, you just kind of going through. That's why having a good understanding of what you're working with there is going to be very helpful. Aaron?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you and the elders for getting this going. And the worst thing that can happen is we've got two or three Christians studying the Bible together.
The horror.
You know,
Yeah.
that's the worst thing that can happen. The
Yeah.
best thing that can happen is we actually make some outreach.
Yeah.
So I think it's great.
Yes, it is.
Right, and we've had, a few in this, members of this congregation who've been converted from things like this too. So we know, like, it's not a completely crazy idea that we're talking about. That it has a potential to work. I think if we're positive and upbeat about this and go into it looking to make it work, looking for solutions, looking for it to be productive, then we can get a lot out of it and view it for the multi-layered success that it can be. All right, any other questions about how to do this? Peggy?
Have you thought about, we had success with correspondence courses,
Yeah.
and the way you advertise without costing you money is you find, I don't know about this area, this region, but usually you have free papers
Yeah.
that you can make ads in free. And those are very good, because at one time we had 200 people
Yeah.
in correspondence course. So I know it works, it's just a matter of getting contacts
Yeah.
is the matter.
And that's why, like I said, this is one tool we're using, or not saying that we're not allowed to use anything else. We've used correspondence courses here. I think the number of responses we've gotten from those has dropped over the years. People aren't reading papers as much anymore or doing that sort of thing as much, I don't think, as they used to. But we can use any and every tool that is going to be beneficial. Kind of want us to get us started on this one. We can keep on building things as we go. Barry.
Well, one of the most important things that we can use this for is personal relationship with the people we're teaching.
Yeah.
Eyeball to eyeball. When they get to know you, they realize you're not crazy,
Yeah.
some kind of fanatic,
Yep.
and you can develop a good rapport with them.
Yep.
And then they're going to be more likely to consider what you're saying, even though it sounds a little strange to them. They haven't seen it before, because of that rapport, and because of your ability to explain it in a simple manner that yet it has profound depth.
Yeah. Right. And don't underestimate the value of that, because a lot of times people get wrapped up in arguments they've heard on, in the books that they're reading and the YouTube channels they're watching and the things they get on their, r/atheist, r/atheism, Reddit page, where it's not connecting to real people and real arguments. And they got weird straw man ideas that they could actually get through, if they were talking to you face to face. So there's benefit here. There's opportunity here. Mona?
Have you, I'm just asking, does anyone know about, Know Your Bible, the correspondence study course, Know Your Bible?
Yeah.
It's amazing, and I'm still doing it, and I got 2 certificates so far. And I know that Greg, you came to the Church of Christ through the Know.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell your story
Yeah.
there, for sure. But I'm just asking
Yeah.
if that would be something, a tool that we could use.
Yeah, we are willing to talk about different tools and different things. Because it's 4:45, let me end with 2 things here. One, do you have any more questions about this effort in particular that we're starting? Done.
To get to the point where somebody wants to come to our church, it's important to know what the address is.
Yeah. Yes, you should know what the address is.
Not on any things that we have here in the church. I'm gonna give a card to one of my coworkers at work, and I have to go out into the street.
Yeah.
You get the address.
Yes. Okay, so the Google listing has been updated, the website has been updated, Facebook has been updated, but you're right, a lot of the physical stuff that we have doesn't have the right address anymore. So yes, you might want to write down the address for your own benefit, or whip out your phone and go to santeechurchofchrist.com real quick, and it's down there at the bottom. The address is correct on there. Or if you Google it, the Google listing does show the correct address. It's at 8861 Magnolia. So that's here. I have binders that I'm working on. I don't have cards. We're talking about some stuff like that as well. Here, okay. So here's the other thing that I need before I give you a chance to stretch your legs for worship. I need to know how many of you want a binder because you want to do this with us. Okay, and if you want a physical binder first, raise your hand for ones to make up. Okay, think about it. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, Rochelle back there? 12, 13, okay, so like 12 or 13, let's do that. Okay. Binders, okay. And digital ones, if you want it emailed, I'll send it out on the, here's what I'll do, I'll just send it out to the church email. And so you'll all have it digital here soon, okay? And then we'll work on making up some binders. So, we don't have time right this second because we are quickly running out of time, okay? We need to think about splitting people into groups. That's not me, okay. We need to think about splitting people into groups. So, your homework is decide what time and day you could commit to. Think about that and come to me and let me know, I guess, and I will start writing it down. If you have somebody that you in particular want to do this with, that you guys want to do it together, you let me know that too. We'll start forming some groups. Okay? Thank you.